Hello, all you spry tubers, twitchers, and pod people out there. Welcome to the Could You Do It Better podcast, where director, artist, and behind-the-scenes awesomeness known as Sesh, and the writing and directing sensation known as Maria discuss popular television shows and movies and answer the always controversial question of, could you do it better? Today, we will be discussing Season 2, Episode 6 of Ryan Condal's House of the Dragon television series, based upon George R.R. Martin's novel, Fire and Blood. And as for me, I'm Jonathan the Intern, and unlike our two experts, have no industry experience whatsoever. In other words, I'm much like Alicent. I was told by our chief of staff that I am no longer employed on this show and need to give up my chair. My kin despondently tell me, well, you did your best, but really mean you're a failure of a human being. And my coworkers are trying to sell me overseas as a bride to pirates. And now, really, and now to Sesh and Maria. Woo!
Oh boy.
Yes. Welcome to a new episode. This is the 6th episode of Season 2 of House of the Dragons. Will it be better than Episode 5? Probably not, but spoiler warning anyway. So we will be doing a detailed recap of Season 2, Episode 6 of the House of the Dragon TV series, and it will contain spoilers throughout. So if you haven't watched this episode and don't want to hear spoilers before you do, please feel free to put us on mute as you watch the episode, then rewatch our show afterwards, because that's how you double those view counts. And now, on to the recap as mandated by our legal department. The episode begins on horseback, where a large Lannister army arrives at the Tooth to meet a noble house loyal to them and their army. There was no time to introduce anyone in this scene, as that was taken up by Tylan Raven to King's Landing, requesting time off until Aemon joins them in battle. Aemon is like, I command you. You don't command me. Take over Harrenhal post-haste. Alicent then tries saying something, but Aemon ignores her, while telling Tylan to make a deal with the Free Cities to attack Rhaenyra's blockade and weaken it so they can break through. Lord Jasper offers up the idea of marrying off Alicent to the Greyjoys to form an alliance with their fleet, but Alicent is having none of it. Aemon then commands Sir Criston to take his remaining men and book it to Harrenhal, where he will form a second front of attack against Daemon that he will then fly into battle on Vhagar to finish them off. Oh, sounds like they've been following my advice, huh? Council members leave, realizing Aemon is clearly smarter than all of them. Aemon, however, keeps his mom after class to tell her she's been relieved of her seat on the small council. She's like, you can't fire me. I served for your dad and brother. Aemon responds, yeah, about that. Those two people you listed are both pretty much The Walking Dead now, and you can't technically be fired because you never had a seat in the first place. You just showed up one day, and nobody cared enough to tell you that you weren't actually an employee at the company. Payroll said it'd sort itself out. Bye now. Yes, to Dragonstone, where Corlys stares at the burning war table thinking, yep, seems about right, while formally handing himself. Rhaenyra calls in Sir Steffan Darkland, telling him his grandma's grandma was once a Targaryen, and would he like to take a dragon out for a test drive? Everyone in the council thinks she's crazy, but he's like, hell yeah, I'm gonna ride a god or die trying. To Harrenhal, where Daemon is daydreaming about how he let his brother Viserys down in Season 1 and was kicked out of King's Landing and told to go home. Unfortunately, Daemon can't open the door and begs for help. But after Simon Strong comes to his aid, Daemon's descent into madness is clear as he pulls out his stabbing knife on him spouting paranoia. Simon is like, shh, shh, besitos, while stroking Daemon's face like a bunny, and Daemon scampers away where he runs into Alice Rivers, who he apparently booked as his licensed therapist, helping him calm his emotions and understand that the crown is a burden, not a prize. He asks her what he can do, and she tells him he can do nothing. He's just a piece on a board and inconsequential in the grand scheme of the universe. But for now, she tells him to just wait 3 days so either the winds can change or he can finally die from sleep deprivation. Begin the 2 minutes of discordant dragon singing. In enter Seasmoke to meet his Tinder match, Sir Darklin. Seasmoke likes the alpha male commands Darklin is laying down and lets him know he's ready to take him on the ride of his life. Unfortunately, Darklin starts boasting about the ensuing conquest, and overconfidence is a real big red flag for Seasmoke, who swiped left mid-date with fiery indignation, leaving Darklin and one of the out-of-tune singers flambéed. Thankfully, Rhaenyra got to see this in person, so she could fully visualize her leadership qualities at work. And now, it's time for the weekly random scene. This time featuring an extra as Corlys commands the hesitant Alan to go boating with him. But we're not done yet. It's time to make it a double feature as we go to Ulf complaining about his soup and blockade in the local tavern as another random character, the madam from the brothel, tries sowing discord like she's a paid actor against Aemon, saying they're feasting while everyone is starving while keeping rightful heir Rhaenyra off the throne in the least subtle nod to Myseria's shadow campaign imaginable. This resonates with Ulf because that might get him another week of screen time as random character in random scene. Meanwhile, random councilman Celtigar, yep, I had to look that up, completely lambasted Rhaenyra for her decision to roast one of their best knights on a whim, talking down to her like a child. So she smacks him with her pimp hand, telling him he forgot to fear her. Then she walks away to fondle a sword in her room.
Oh boy.
She then complains to Mysaria about how nobody will ever listen to her again because of what she did. And Mysaria's like, F the haters, you just gotta do you, girlfriend. Mysaria then spills the tea that she's spreading rumors against Aemon. And the whole town is like, ew, he's like such a privileged Nepo baby. And then they're totally gonna like blast him on TikTok later and like get him canceled and stuff. But first, let's like take pics of you holding that sword and putting it on Insta cause yes, queen. On cue, the Kingsguard parade a flock of sheep through the city to show the townsfolk what they're eating. Ulf calmly protests that he wants some more meat. Meat? Can I have some more meat, please? To the small council, where Councilman Ironrod tells Aemon his people are starving and angry. And Aemon says, why should I care? It's Rhaenyra's fault. Tell them to blame her. Larys takes this moment to tactlessly nominate himself to the position of hand. Aemon calls him out for being the disgusting wretch of a human he is, but that he does need a hand and to call back Otto to retake his position. Man, they can't even go 3 episodes without Otto. In enters the Maester, who's like, good news, everyone. Aegon might not be fully dead yet. He was just conscious for a few seconds and breathed a little. Aemon's like, that is great news. Now I can torture him. Aemon returns Aegon's ball of ruling back into the whimpering Aegon's body. To the Vale, where Rhaena is teaching young Prince Joffrey about how even though she is a complete failure in life, destined to spend her days caring for and instructing him, she tries making the most out of it, just like he'll have to do when he gets older. Man, must be those new bleak teaching curriculum requirements I've been hearing about. On their walk, Rhaena spots evidence of a wild dragon. This may be her last chance to be anything before being sent off to Pentos. But for now, back to Driftmark, where Alan and Adam Hull have a brotherly conversation about being Corlys's unclaimed bastards and how that sucks. Whew! Well, at least we finally get a proper introduction to these characters, and all it took was a half season's worth of random weekly vignettes. Now we can finally proceed with the show. Over to Dragonstone, where Jace tries therapizing his mom, asking why she's slapping people, to which she says he was mean to her, and then asking if she's considered reaching out to Daemon to coordinate a dragon strike since they've lost all military advantage on the ground, to which Rhaenyra throws what can be best described as an enormous inferiority complex hissy fit. Enter Miss Serious saying, "Let's go get lit at Blackwater tonight, cause it's on, girl." Rhaenyra's like, "Yeah, slut, let's kick it."
Oh, man.
Chase is like, "What the hell are you doing?" Then walks away in disgust. To Blackwater Bay, where it seems the plan is to send boatloads of fresh food. I'm hoping it's Trojan fresh food. Back to Alicent, who's apologizing and crying at Aegon's bedside and wondering why her daddy isn't returning her calls. This is followed by several minutes of conversation between her and her brother Gawain, talking about how childhood trauma and parental failures have an effect on personality and adulthood. I'm now guessing the writer of this episode came straight out of a therapy session before penning this one. To the streets of King's Landing, and the great food riot of 22 has begun. That blacksmith with the ailing family the show has never properly introduced knocks a fellow commoner out to steal his lettuce and carrots. Alicent and Helena get caught coming from the sept and have rotten fish thrown at them by the booing crowd. A man then puts his hand on Alicent and gets it lopped off by the Kingsguard, and the angry throngs did not like that police brutality, and the riot is on. Alicent and Helena sprint and make it to safety as their security guards get run down. Crowd chanting Rhaenyra's name. To the Red Keep, where Larys withholds Aegon's pain medication to tell him his childhood trauma of having people stare at him for having a clubbed foot. Explaining to Aegon he's like him now. He responds like anyone would, saying, "Oh God, no, not like you, anyone but you." Larys tells him Aegon's life is in danger so long as Aemon rules, and Aegon asks for Larys's help. On to another Daemon fever dream, this time about being there to console his brother after his wife died from the complication of Viserys ordering the Maesters to split her in half during childbirth to aid delivery. He's woken up by Sir Strong, telling him Grover Tully, the only person who can unite the Riverlands, has died in his sleep because he found out that spooky as hell witch Alice Rivers was going to pay him a visit, and he's like, "F it, I'm out." Daemon cries in relief that maybe he can finally go home now. Cut to Annam Hull on the beach, catching Sea Smoke's eye, likely due to racial profiling. After a dramatic chase scene, Sea Smoke is like, "Yeah, I got my man." Meanwhile, Rhaenyra is whining to Mysaria about her son doesn't respect her as a leader and that Daemon doesn't want her. Mysaria responds that her dad impregnated her, then slashed her throat and cut out her uterus, which is why she doesn't want a man to rule, but instead a woman steadfast in her values like Rhaenyra to be queen. Rhaenyra responds by embracing and making out with her. Yes, this seriously is what happened. Episode ends, thankfully, with Rhaenyra's tonsil hockey being interrupted and her hopping on Cyrax to take down Sea Smoke and his new mystery rider. This episode is brought to you by Self-Help Yourself, a limited liability company. How many times have you been dealing with tough decisions or deep-seated emotional trauma and just don't know where to turn for help? Here at Self-Help Yourself, LLC, we offer 24/7 around-the-clock support therapists who provide you the immediate, non-judgmental life advice your emotionally abusive or insensitive parents, significant others, or friends never could. So whether you need help understanding how to constructively deal with your feelings of wanting to punch your coworker in the face, whether you could use some help coping with being fired from the family business by your child, or whether you need to be told that under no circumstance whatsoever is your employee telling you they were sexually assaulted a green light to try immediately hooking with in the office, as it's completely and degenerate behavior. Self-Help Yourself is there for you. That's Self-Help Yourself, yourself spelled with a U. But there is no self-help without you. Back
wow.
to you, Sesh and Mert.
Rhaenyra really does need an HR, huh?
Mhm.
HR department here. Yikes.
One of the most shockingly poignant ads we've ever had in sponsors. Amazing they called out to us this week to put up an ad. I felt they gave some really good advice.
Yikes.
All right, I guess it's time to start the show.
Oh yeah, did you forget about that? Yeah.
It was a lot to take in, okay?
I was ready for some therapy. I'm like, okay. All right. Our first question is, if Rhaenyra was a man and proceeded to fondle Mysaria after she shared her history of sexual abuse and physical attack from her own father, how would that have played? Is there any hope for female empowerment this season at all? I'll start with this one. What on earth was that? If Rhaenyra was a man, that would have basically been a clear message saying, now you're under my control. Welcome to being powerless and abused again. I can't believe she made a move on Mysaria after she shared such a harrowing experience involving someone in a position of power taking sexual advantage of her. That was the most sexist writing I've ever seen. It reminds me of Sesh's comment last episode where she said it feels like teen boys who have never had a real relationship with a woman are writing a show about female empowerment. The closest they can get is to have two girls make out. Unbelievable. They torched any kind of female empowerment they were trying to set up with Rhaenyra this episode in multiple ways. It was so bad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, easy answer is just nope. Like at first I was a little hyped because we called it. We theorized Rhaenyra and Alicent had like schoolgirl crushes on each other, which would have added a layer to them back then. But then my realization set in and it felt so icky. Like, it's pretty gross to immediately, I mean, it is gross to immediately make a romantic move after somebody trusts you with such a tragic story. Like, what a rough past. But the scene also felt icky because it seems too late in the show to get into that part of Rhaenyra's sexuality, especially since she already lived through an open marriage and she isn't making any more heirs, and she's broken up with Daemon. So I'm struggling to find the conflict escalation. Like, I love to see representation and different ways to add depth to characters, including their different perspectives, interests, past, feelings. Like, it makes everything more dynamic, but making a strong woman character who don't need no man is so cliche. Like, this isn't empowerment. Like, they didn't write the foundation for this to be what she really wants. So it feels really shoehorned in. Like, especially since it seems like it's ultimately going to be irrelevant. Like, where's the conflict? Daemon is going to be more upset than he was already going to be anyways. Okay. Like, I'm kind of worried for Mysaria, who's in an unfortunate position when she was just getting her stride. But knowing this show, they're not going to add tension to this relationship. And if they keep it copacetic, it's still icky.
Yeah, I'm in complete agreement with both of you. And I'm going to be real for a second here. I'm not, nor have I ever been one who tends to project faux outrage or gets involved in the moral or ethical superiority arguments that seem to take place in basically every review or internet article. You know, I also don't succumb to the best ever, worst ever, there's no middle ground philosophy that seems to grow with each passing day, that you're either on one extreme side or the other, pretending there is no such thing as a gray area or moderate thoughts. And if you see the reviews on IMDb of this episode, you're going to see a ton of 10s and 1s, and that's pretty much all you're going to see. So when I say this, I truly do mean it. But watching the scene was one of the most infuriating, depraved, and deeply upsetting writing choices that I've ever seen in a movie or film. You have a woman, Mysaria, saying she was raped by her father multiple times, and then after becoming pregnant by him, he slashed her throat and uterus and left her for dead, and the main character, Rhaenyra, responds by making out with her despite no inkling that either character has any chemistry or romantic feelings for one another. And as a reminder, Rhaenyra, that's your main character, a character who is a female lead that you spent the entirety of season 1 trying to portray as a rightful heir and worthy leader. And then you spend all of season 2 hammering home gender inequality and woman empowerment issues at every, and I do mean every opportunity. It's in every single episode. So what do you do this episode? You have her whine all episode about how nobody takes her seriously, and then she takes advantage of a woman who tells her she was raped. Why not just hold her and comfort her like an actual respectful human being? And then maybe down the line you can introduce a possible romance. And the fact that from my understanding, this relationship is a departure from the books didn't happen. And hence it's a writer showrunner decision is completely unfathomable to me in this situation. And it's borderline character assassination. At this point, I only see the scene written such that they could broadcast 2 women kissing. That's the only reason I think they put it on there, because it adds absolutely nothing from what I saw. And how they got a female writer of all people to write this, I don't get this show. I absolutely do not get it. It was a terrible scene, should not have made the cut, and I cannot believe that they wrote it as is and included it.
I mean, I will say in defense, not all women speak for all women, so ugh.
True.
Oh.
Still though.
Well, our next question is your take on Rhaenyra's slap, going on with her leadership abilities. Is there any scenario when a person in power should slap a councilman? You want to start with it?
Yeah. So unlike the first one, I'll be a little more jocular here, which is humorously, I don't have much of an issue with the slap, as her council member was clearly going over the line, despite being entirely accurate that Rhaenyra is a completely incompetent general and leader who needs to be talked down to like a small child because she doesn't seem capable of understanding that she needs to rely on her council's help to devise military strategy. But really, she could have executed him then and there and would have had full rights to it. He was being passive aggressive, snarky there. He didn't outright say it, but it was there. It was very clear she could have killed him if she wanted to. That said, generally, there are more constructive ways to deal with criticisms of your leadership than slapping the person criticizing you and saying you need to make people remember to fear you. And as someone who, by the way, I really have in real life seen a couple of actual physical fights in the workplace. Yeah, twice. I actually don't think it's the worst thing in the world. Oh, I shouldn't say this on record. As it usually means you have 2 people who deeply care about what they're working on. They just disagree with how to move forward and they don't know how to. Yeah, exactly. So a good manager or hand, in this case, should be able to settle them down and bridge the gap. Oh, and one thing. While I don't recommend slapping someone in the workplace, if you do, just be smart enough to make sure it's not on camera. Yes, people? Yes? Also, yeah, I'd probably be slapping most of the characters in this series multiple times each episode if I could get away with it anyways. Rhaenyra and Daemon especially.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the only scenario she should have been slapping someone was when she found out Daemon had a toddler killed instead of Aemon. That deserved a good hearty slap. Outside of that, it shows a lack of intelligence, forethought, leadership, ability, and confidence, especially when he wasn't trying to do it to make her look bad or undermine her authority. He was clearly trying to problem solve after seeing her decision-making lead to another death of a good soldier. How many more people does she have to kill on her own side for her to start seeing maybe she should take the advice of her council instead of side advice from her kid and secret advice from Visaria that is not shared with anyone else? She still hasn't asked the Hand a single question, and he is an expert in war. It looks like she just wants it to appear that she's an intelligent leader without doing the work to actually be one. and she takes counsel in secret.
I forgot I was excited for Corliss to be her hand. It didn't say anything. Wait, I think we're in agreement with this one. Like this was a good slap and funny and satisfying. Since he was being so annoying. But like it wasn't a great slap. She's always been well spoken, and the slap was such a shortcut. I enjoyed it, and clearly she is boiling over with frustration for her plan immediately causing death. But still, I would have liked to see her use her words to rip this guy up, because I know she can. Like, I welcome more slaps. I should note people in power definitely should not slap those below them in general, or really ever. And she knows it. But I worry this wasn't significant enough to show her character going into any type of Breaking Bad direction. Like, it's probably pointless. Like, but maybe she's going to have, more of a dramatic change of heart. We'll see, but I don't think so.
Well, our next question to tackle is, there seem to be a lot of informal advisors this episode. Alice seems to help Damon by killing heads of households for him and giving him advice. Rhaenyra seems to give free-flowing advice and strategy from Missaria, among other things. And finally, Alicent gets counsel from her brother. Does this feel like it would genuinely happen, or feel like an easy way to move characters into the positions the writers want them in? I'm going to start with this one. Whenever I have seen this kind of interaction in, say, Game of Thrones or other well-written series, each scene always comes with a clear view of what each person wants in it for themselves. And if it isn't clear, it becomes clear pretty soon. It has been a long time, and we still don't know what most of these advisors truly want. And when you take too long to reveal a person's motive, it loses its sense of urgency and realism to the point where it just feels like they're there for exposition and eventual use as a surprise or two of some sort. But, I mean, they're just loose strings that they don't really hold interest like they should. The exception to that I see is in Larys, where we do see why he helps and his motives, and he has served as one of the few points of drama in this series because of it, I think. Although the other storylines surrounding him have been such a slow burn that his dramatic arc is also cooling.
Yeah, I think that's really well said, and I've seen it as well, that it's mainly used to convey the writers or showrunners' talking points in the episode, repeated weirdly almost verbatim, and often used for exposition. Like it's I've never seen that technique in a show before. But I do agree with you that the Larys scenes, they felt different and hit a lot better than in most episodes up to this point. Like, it did remind me of say a Tywin or a Tyrion conversation or a Varys conversation that would be had, because it felt actually realistic. But then you have the Daemon and Alice scenes, which seem completely far-fetched, unless you believe he's ensorcelled by her, as he's basically an entirely different person. The Alicent Gwaine conversation about childhood trauma and parental role and childhood development, yeah, that felt extremely forced, extremely, and so on the nose, it was worrisome. And then you have the Rhaenyra Missaria, which I don't even really want to get into again, as it's spelled out word for word, and then is later reshown exactly as stated later in the show. But, Rhaenyra is a mess of a character, and so theoretically this could be accurate at this point.
Yeah, I wasn't quite bothered by him. Like, the other thing, like, I would have liked to have seen all of this earlier in the series.
Oh, we have a question from the Podbean.
Not a question, but yes, it is a comment. Yeah. Oh, and they have rebuttals to us, in that it's not over yet, and that this is dope, and it's a meeting, a Tyrion backstabbing is what this is all about. I agree with you. I do agree with you. I think that part was pretty good.
Yeah. Like, I mean, what I would have liked to have seen is these scenes earlier in the series, like more different interactions. Like right now, like, like they they kind of bothered me, but like I just wish I was more interested in these scenes since these characters haven't been built up enough. Like there was a lot of exposition and redundant moments, but like I didn't feel like anyone was out of place, just that it was out of place because it was late. Like it's frustrating that it was at least like 4 times there was an interesting backstory to a character and why they are who they are in this single episode. Like looking back, I'm frustrated they didn't just give us these scenes earlier in the series, sprinkle them throughout. Like it's like the writers were just procrastinating getting to these backstories, and suddenly it's important, so they're doing them in bulk to get it over with. They're good backstories though, they really are. Like I might care more going forward, but it's so late in the series already.
Yeah, they have order problems, definitely. So our next question is, do you think Aemond is as bad a ruler as everyone seems to show? Sesh, you want to get it started?
Yeah, honestly, he's always seemed like a way better choice than Aegon to me. Like, I don't get the sense his priority is his manhood and appearing tough. Like, he has actually studied and trained and has done more earning his capabilities rather than just feeling entitled to them, which definitely makes for a better leader than those led by ego. He is scary, though, fierce and cunning and unkind. I suspected he was going to be formidable, but I wasn't positive until he called for Odo to come back to be his hand. I'm confident that he very much has his hand on the ball to do this job, but he's not a people person, and King's Landing is filled with people. So don't hate me for this, but the common folk are his blind spot.
Mm.
Yeah. If he can consider, got it. Okay, good. Like if he can consider the bigger picture, the piece that comes after the war, he might be a good king.
Yeah, I agree. Aemond, for better or worse, has kept his eye on the ball. He seems to be making strong military decisions that come from spending a lot of time thinking about strategy, while also working to establish himself with a reputation of being a strong ruler who isn't a pushover. And that's important image, Both strategies fall under normal rulership-like behavior. Even he didn't do any slapping of anyone at his round table. I mean, instead, he focused on what he thought made sense and ruled out advice from people he deemed not suitable to give it. His mom. Is he necessarily a nice guy? No. He is cold and calculating. Does that make him a bad ruler? Not necessarily.
Yeah. I think he's deeply overlooking the political side of rule when it comes to ingratiating himself with his commoners. But outside of that, yeah, I agree. I've generally thought he's shown some very solid leadership. Has made some savvy military decisions, especially this episode, and is definitely on the correct path to how to attack Rhaenyra and Daemon. He's also wise, I can't believe I'm saying this, to bring Otto back into the mix. While Otto's he's a terrible self-serving hand, who only gives advice that benefits him. If there is one thing Otto does seem to be pretty good at, it's putting on a good smiley front for the populace. If Aemon figures out how to pay enough mind and resources to appease the citizens of Westeros, I actually agree he could be a very powerful king, in my opinion. Not necessarily a nice or just king, but like a king that would deserve and command respect. That's for sure.
All right. Now to the smoke question. How would you have approached finding a writer for Sea Smoke?
Yarg.
Start with this one. Okay, I would have treated this like Cinderella going to the ball. As Sea Smoke being Cinderella, even though he's a guy, I know, and a host of Targaryen knockoffs are there ready to dance.
Oh.
I'd have set up an easy escape route or place to jump off of for the suitors, so they have at least a little bit of a chance of survival in case Sea Smoke gets moody. I would have given Sea Smoke options so as to maybe reduce his frustration if he doesn't like one that is presented.
Oh, that sounds lovely, a ball.
Nicer than me.
For me, I'm thinking carnival.
Oh.
Yeah, have Sea Smoke as one of the rides. If you can ride him for 5 seconds, you get an oversized plushie and a freshly heated funnel cake by Sea Smoke himself.
Oh,
You just
yummy.
can't turn that opportunity down. And may I just say, I just find it absolutely hilarious that the one thing Rhaenyra is good at as a leader so far, which is doing nothing, is all she had to do. Sea Smoke went and found his own rider himself. Just do nothing. Should be Rhaenyra.
It would have been better off. Yeah, I mean, I wish I knew more about the ritual. That seemed kind of cool. I would have some better suggestions than what I'm making up here. Letting the dragon pick from a big group would be my way to go about it as well. Maybe if the dragon felt their rider was present, they wouldn't sneak a snack without permission, like a good dog. And more lives would be spared is the hope. Maybe include a big pile of fish that the dragon eat. They let them know everyone's being friendly rather than wearing battle armor and having pokey sticks. But luckily we have Daex Dragona, and the dragon finally, with coincidental timing, years and years later than necessary, smells friendship and finds their forever rider. I wasn't expecting who we got. But as soon as I saw him and the dragon in the same scene, it was no surprise what was going to happen. Just like the first guy, who unfortunately I got the impression gets typecast as a guy who is a messenger that gets killed screaming, "Don't kill the messenger." That poor guy never had a chance. I like how this plot played out, but I wish the individual parts had tension instead of being predictable. And I wish we got into more of the technique of becoming a dragon rider. Do I make eye contact? Do I not? I don't know.
That would be cool. That would be cool.
In fairness, Sea Smoke and Adam were seeing themselves from across the sky, pretty often over the years. It was a real meet cute type thing. And Sea Smoke's like, I got to shoot my shot, man. They're trying to set me up with this idiot. I can choose my own man. Thank you very much.
Sea Smoke showed them.
All right, our next question of the night is 2 episodes left and a lot of slow burn setups that don't seem possible to have payoff in that period of time. Do you think they will button different setups before the end? What do you think, Sesh?
I don't know. I have expectations of it being anticlimactic no matter what. None of the plot threads feel ready to be resolved. I'm not even sure the plot threads that have been brewing are going to be the climax. The common folk of King's Landing might be it. I think we're already at that point where the dragons are being used and it's understood. It's literally been said that this is now a dragon war. The small folk making a difference because of their numbers doesn't quite fit right with this story. It's not an escalation. Mysaria rising to power is interesting, but the riots against a fortified castle as knights and a dragon isn't something I'm getting excited about. Daemon doesn't have an enthusiastic army yet and is actually feeling guilt from his past with his brother, which looks like it's going to cut his war-raging bravado. His relationship with Alice just took a turn, but it's less of the go off to battle type of turn. We're not ready for his confrontation yet. And at this pace, I don't think it'll be good if we got it this season. That's so slow. So if there's a dragon fight at all, it'll come out of nowhere elsewhere. The whole story has a lot of procrastination and redundancies to make up for.
Agreed. Yeah. I think if they do it, it won't be very satisfying because there just isn't enough time. For example, Aegon's recovery and potential revenge needs time to plot and watch him. I'd love to watch him slowly mature with Larys' help. I think whatever they're trying to do with the father of the sick girl won't really manifest well. I could have sworn he was going to be a dragon rider based on how they focused on him and that family, but I don't know now. The whole random Ulf situation doesn't seem to be leading anywhere. And if it does, it will just be rushed because they didn't spend enough time on him. This series has suffered from many problems, but one that stands out to me is that they're trying to do too many things and taking too long to achieve even the big ones.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean that's really fair. And I'd say the same thing. Like who even knows at this point? It's just been so disjointed, the show. Some things they take forever to get to, which don't amount to anything anyway. And some things they immediately resolve, like within episode, without building up to it. So I'm assuming that the impending battle at Harrenhal is forthcoming and will likely close off the season. I mean, they've talked about that for a while. It seems like they're riding off to battle. So I'm going to assume that that's either next episode or the finale. Maybe even Rhaena will save the day flying in on her newly tamed wild dragon to turn the tide of the battle. That seems like something the writers would do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also guessing Ulf or that blacksmith will do something in King's Landing or defect and join Rhaenyra's side, because why spend a whole season on both of them without them doing anything? Like, I don't even know how casting works like that, but usually when you have like recurring casting, you want to actually introduce the character, and have something for them other than random vignettes. But that's a whole other point. But I think it's clear there's definitely going to be a lot of holes going into season 3, especially with regards to character interactions. Now I will say one thing is, in fairness, I do believe we said the exact same thing about season 1. And while there were a bunch of holes, they shockingly were able to put a lot together in those final 2 episodes, which actually were 2 of the best episodes in season 1. Remember correctly?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. They could pull a rabbit out of their hat again with this, but no, it's not promising. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, we're down to ratings, and would you continue watching? Sesh, what are your thoughts?
We have to, right? It's only 2 more episodes, and I like watching fires, not just actual fires, but things just crumble and go away and burn, and that's gonna be the show. Or they might pull it out of the hat, and the last 2 episodes might be good. For this one though, I was mostly bored, I think. Like, I wasn't surprised by anything that's going to be relevant. Like, it was a 4 or 3 rating for me. Like, the slap was fun, but that's not plot relevant and yet to be seen if it's a character development at all. I like Damon's dreams this time. It was enough to make him feel guilt/regret, and was way more interesting than last week's roast dream time. I'm liking Visaria more and more, even though I don't feel like the new relationship actually makes anything more interesting. It just feels like a gimmick. Wardrobe was great. Dragon everything is always cool. I'm left wanting more of that. The riot was tense because it escalated quickly, but wrapped up just as quick. Finding dragon riders went exactly as expected. Like, I'm struggling to even find things to say about this episode.
Yeah. I'd like to see what our live viewer on Podbean has to say on this. So throw up a rating out of 10 on there. We'll say it on air. He seems to be he or she seems to be a Rhaena fan as well. So I'm looking forward to that. Maybe we'll see her take part in the show. So for me, I thought the first 25 minutes of the show was generally decent, if not good. I did like the first 25 minutes. I was even sitting there saying, wow, this is going pretty well. It felt like things were driving along. I thought the Aemon small council scene, I thought that was great, in my opinion. Like one of the better small council scenes in the show, as was the ill attempt of dragon taming. I thought that was pretty great. Like, the discordant singing, everything leading up to it was, it's like, this is not going to go well, and it followed through. What followed though was 40 minutes of what I thought to be just awful writing, beginning with the random scenes of random characters. So glad it took 6 episodes worth of weird and awkward weekly small talk to find out officially that Alan and Adam Hall are Corliss's bastard sons, by the way. after being hinted like for the past
Oh,
two
yeah.
episodes. I mean, it added so much to the show. I mean, listen, I get they don't want like this mystery dragon rider just to show up out of nowhere, but there's got to be a better way to do that introduction. Like, gotta anything like forget the small talk. Show him like actually struggling or something like that. And you know what? What it added, you know, to the show, obviously, I couldn't say, but you know, sure it was something, you know. And similarly, I can't wait to find out about Ulf or the blacksmith in another 6 episodes. You know, and then came the therapizing for basically every character this show, culminating in Rhaenyra's sexualization of sexual assault and attempted murder by Myseria's father. You know, but hey, there were some nice visuals of characters staring at the horizon. So honestly, this one was a hard sigh for me. I'm giving, like, I wish it followed. It would have stopped at the first 25 minutes. I would have given this actually a pretty high grade, but just because of those last 40. I'm feeling a 3.5 out of 10 or a D minus, entirely carried by that first third of the show.
Yeah, this is actually the lowest rating this time. Usually I'm kind of in the middle or higher. Yeah, I'd rate this 3 out of 10, just based on the terrible way they crafted Rhaenyra alone. Don't claim to be a show that is trying to highlight female empowerment and make the leading female protagonist a weak and incapable leader that can't even maintain a professional line between the one person who is giving her solid advice. Not to mention using her power to take sexual advantage of an already abused person. How does she expect she will bring peace to the realm when she backhands the first person to criticize her? That whole thing, it just ruins the entire vibe of the show for me. 3 out of 10.
I was just saying how I was really liking her last episode. But yeah, it was, man. And they even like had the brother that we didn't spend time with be the one who gets the dragon. Like, why?
I know.
Like, why? They did this to themselves. Like, come on. I thought he was like just a mom, like a half brother. I guess not.
Yeah.
I don't even know what to say. I mean,
he's the only character without the father's hair color in the entire realm at all. Like,
it's what I find remarkable is that here we have a show, and like you know, all shows go through highs and lows and lulls, and we talk about it, but I mean, 3 of these past 4 episodes have just been brutal, like brutal writing, and the one that hasn't was fantastic, you know. So I mean, it's rough, but hey, 2 more episodes this season, so we're gonna power through this. We're gonna get there. Maybe it'll be better next episode. I can hope. I'm guessing, as I said, a big battle is coming. It has to for Harrenhal, so hopefully that'll be enjoyable. So
I want it to.
Yeah, I read they're planning to maybe bring Alicent's other son in to the battle.
Oh.
But they won't necessarily show him, but he'll be part of it somehow. I don't know.
Yeah, Darren.
Whoa, they mentioned him before we saw him. That's impressive, finally.
Well, we may not actually see him physically, but you know.
We'll see.
They haven't cast him yet, that's why.
Well,
so not next episode, you're saying.
Well, if it's like they did with the Lannisters this episode, let's just have one main character
play everybody.
replaying him. Yeah, maybe he'll be Aemond, but with the other eye patch. You know, on the other eye. You know, make it clear. So on that note, let me just look to see if there's any other comments. No, think we're good to go. So all, thank you very much for joining this evening and watching us until the end. Again, we really appreciate your support, and hopefully we brought you some intelligent conversation and laughs tonight. And it's your support that really does make it worth it. So if you like this show, please like, share, subscribe, heart. And if you hated this show, please make sure to like it twice, as that'll really show us. We keep metrics, we send it to the networks, and who knows how the show might change based on what an intern is saying. So our next episode will be on Tuesday, July 30th at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, which will be broadcasting on the YouTube. So looking forward to seeing you then. Usually our Podbean show live is somewhere starting around 5:30, somewhere in that area. And until next time, could you do it better? Bum, 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 bum. All right, bye everybody. Thanks.